Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the content patch for the 10th of December 2013. My name is TotalBiscuit with today's gaming news and comment. Coming up in the show, GOG announces new Guarantee. The VGX Awards were a terrible waste of time, so I'll just give you the announcements from them. And RIOT pulls a 180 on the streaming policy we referred to last week. All this and the OC Remix track of the day is coming your way right about now. GOG.com has unveiled a new guarantee, as they're calling it, the Worldwide Money-Back Guarantee, which allows for a full refund of the product within 30 days of purchase if there is a technical problem. Any game that does not work on the buyer's computer can be refunded within 30 days of purchase, provided that the user has gone through the support system first. They are also offering a 14-day refund policy, assuming that you have not downloaded the game as of yet from your GOG.com library. Now, this presents a rather curious problem in that GOG.com offers games in a DRM-free wrapper, meaning that you could refund the game and yet still play it even if it was actually removed from your collection, because the file could be sitting on your computer for you to install at any time. Now, for any other company, this might seem odd, but this is GOG we're talking about here, that has repeatedly said time and again, indeed exploited the notion for positive publicity, that piracy is very much a service problem, and they believe that providing a good service to the consumer is the way to go. There needs to be an element of trust there between the brand and the consumer in order for this entire system to work. Piracy is something that they simply ignore because they believe that trying to solve it through digital rights management simply causes more piracy to happen. It's something of a gentleman's agreement, and honestly, it really is the only way it's going to work on a DRM-free platform. The fact of the matter is, you could just pirate anything on that platform very, very easily. And it's made even easier by the fact that it is DRM-free. As soon as something gets released on GOG, it could very easily just go up on Pirate Bay immediately, and more often than not, it certainly does. However, that can also happen with anything else. The myth, of course, is that other games are immune to this kind of piracy, which is not true, unless they happen to have always online solutions, which seem to be the only things that really hold up, and frankly, as we've seen before, are not really good answers, since they can run into a myriad of different problems. See SimCity and, of course, Diablo 3 for examples there. This, to me, seems like a very good PR move, as well as obviously being consumer-friendly. It really puts it out there and says, look, we've got a DRM-free platform, and yet we're willing to do this, so Steam, Origin, Green Man, and all these other providers, why aren't you? Obviously, it's a little strange to say it about Origin since they actually do have a refund policy, but I do feel this is actually squarely aimed at Valve. It's saying, look, Steam, you're the big dog. You've also started to encroach on our territory. You've been uploading these older games. In fact, there's been an awful lot of them, as we've noticed. So, we got a refund policy, and you don't. So what exactly do you offer that we cannot when it comes to older games? And I have to agree with them on that. I'm sorry, but there is one platform that I will avoid when it comes to buying older games, and it is Steam. There's no point. The benefits of Steam, such as keeping your games up to date, well, they don't really matter when the game is like 10 years old. There's not going to be any more patches for it. So unless there's integrated workshop support, which there more often than not isn't when it comes to the older titles, you're more likely to get a compatible version on GOG. You're certainly going to get a DRM-free version on GOG. You might very well get a cheaper version on GOG, and you'll probably get some bonuses like, say, soundtracks and wallpapers. So why on earth would I buy older games from Steam? And I think that seems to be what this is pushing towards. It's also a nice example, and I feel that it is going to hopefully start a bit of a discussion, because let's be honest, we all love Steam. Steam is great for a number of different reasons. It's the dominant platform for a very good reason, and yet its refund policy is extremely weak, in the sense of you barely ever get one. You can get pre-orders refunded before release, but if you want to get a refund on a game that's already done, well, good luck. Once that's out, you're going to have to beg for one, and pretty much what I've heard is unofficially you can get one refund, and that's as far as it goes. They will not do it again. That makes them one of the worst providers when it comes to respecting consumer rights on the PC platform. One of the worst. Worse than Origin, which is shocking. Origin actually has a refund policy for EA-specific games. Not a bad one either, honestly. And Valve? What does Valve have? Well, they have a slow support system that, frankly, does not respect the rights of the consumer, and they're being pushed heavily by legislation in the EU to stop doing that. They need to provide these kind of things. And it's relevant on PC. It really is. The reason it's relevant is because it is more likely a game will not work on your PC than it would on any console. Why would a game not work on the console? Well, either it's really, really buggy, in which case it's affecting everybody, or the disc is shredded. And that really is about it. Those are the two things that can go wrong. On a PC, it could be a myriad of different things. And it's not necessarily your fault. Your PC could run 100 games perfectly, and then this one game you download just doesn't work because of some obscure software you've got installed, and good luck finding out what's causing it. That's a very difficult thing to do. I like to refer back to the Sale of Goods Act, which of course refers to physical goods, not these digital things, but regardless, I think the principle is important. The Sale of Goods Act from the UK specifically states, if it's not fit for purpose, you're entitled to a refund from the retailer. And then the retailer goes up the chain and demands a refund from the manufacturer, and that's how things work. And that is respect for consumer rights. It's really as simple as that. And yet, Steam does not offer that. And yes, there are times when games do not work, but it goes even further than that, yeah? It sounds like I'm sticking it to Steam. That's really not the case. They're just the biggest retailer, which means they're the most liable for this kind of stuff right now. But it goes even further than that. If we want to talk about refund policies, we should talk about the idea that they release games that aren't finished. Think about how ridiculous that would be if we were talking about a book or a movie. Think about that. A movie's missing half the scenes. Like, this is actually only 59 minutes long because we didn't get the other scenes finished. We'll patch them in later. Would that be acceptable in any other form of media? Absolutely not. No way. No way. And yet it is here, and we get stuck with it time and again. Even AAA's, Battlefield 4, still doesn't run properly for a bunch of people. I logged on last night, and I've had some good things to say about Battlefield 4 and some bad things. I think it's a pretty good game. But when I spawn into a level, and it spawns me into imaginary water beneath the level where I can't do anything, I'm just saying, right, you know what? I can't be arsed with this. I have got better things to do with my time. Let's play a game that actually works. And honestly, if I could get that refunded, I probably would. Same with SimCity. That's a game where the problems did not become obvious until a little bit further down the line. It almost seems like these guys are trying to front-load the experience. But there are plenty of problems with PC gaming right now, and it's more prevalent than any other platform outside maybe iOS, yeah? You get some really buggy titles, you get stuff that's unfinished, that's not fit for purpose, and then you get stuff that's badly optimized. I mean, optimization alone is a good enough reason, in my opinion, to say, look, this isn't fit for purpose. My machine should run this better, you know? I think Steam is getting big enough where they could start to really apply that pressure to the big publishers. Because honestly, if you're not on Steam, you don't sell very well, with a couple of exceptions. You know, Blizzard can sell their games outside of Steam, EA can do it because of Origin, and that really is about it. And your sales will suffer greatly if you are not on Steam. So that seems to me like Steam and Valve could turn around and say, right, here's how it's gonna be. We are gonna offer refunds for our consumers if stuff doesn't work properly, and you are gonna have to sort that out. That's how it's going to be. I'd love to see that. I would really love to see Valve step up for the consumer here. They don't really have too much of a history of doing that, though. So we'll see if that ends up happening. But I'm hoping that this change from GOG will not only give things a shove in the right direction, but they will also encourage people to buy from GOG, because it's a great site with some really awesome games. I should also tell you, actually, that I have a GOG mix on there, which is TotalBiscuit's new definitive list of strategy games, which I really need to update, so I'll try and do that tonight. And that is a list of really, really good games you can buy on GOG, so go and check that out. I've actually put a link there in the description below this video. So the VGX Awards were terrible. That is the opinion of the vast majority of people, it would seem. The attempted rebrand of the Spike VGAs fell flat on its face, with some really cringy humor and generally awful presentation over the course of 3 hours. The picks of the awards were predictable, to say the least, and it seems like everything was just a gigantic waste of time. However, there were a few announcements at the awards show that I wouldn't say were worth waiting for, but are pretty cool nonetheless. There were 2 rather exciting announcements from Telltale, including the fact that they will be doing their rumored Game of Thrones series, which is very exciting for a lot of people. And they've also hooked up with the guys over at Gearbox to do a series called Tales from the Borderlands, which will hopefully be significantly less repetitive than the actual Borderlands. Admittedly, I have a feeling that the dialogue will be no less ridiculous and aimed at 13-year-olds. The other two announcements were the definitive edition of Tomb Raider, which is funny because I own a PC, therefore I already own the definitive edition of Tomb Raider, and No Man's Sky, which is a massive sci-fi procedurally generated universe game from the makers of Joe Danger, which is a little bit of a change of pace for them, I've got to say. Game of Thrones announcement is pretty thrilling, as far as I'm concerned. That sounds fantastic. So far, the Game of Thrones games have been particularly weak. If you want to play a Game of Thrones game, you're better off playing the card game or the board game, which are actually phenomenal. But Game of Thrones Genesis, as well as the Game of Thrones RPG, were not particularly good. A story-driven game that focuses on dialogue as well as consequence-based dialogue choices sounds absolutely perfect for Game of Thrones. That is a match made in heaven, as far as I'm concerned. So I'm really looking forward to that one. Hopefully, that will end up being absolutely fantastic. And I hope that they're able to keep it M-rated as well, you know, keep the grit in there, because taking any of that off the edge would really not work so well. Tales of the Borderlands, you know, I'm kind of here or there on, honestly. Borderlands is a pretty cool setting, but I don't necessarily agree that it would result in really good dialogue. It gets occasional chuckles out of me, but a lot of it is pretty puerile, so it's really not aimed at me. The definitive edition of Tomb Raider is kind of hilarious, really, because it's a case of saying, oh yeah, well here's a version that is kinda almost looking as good as the PC version, but not quite. But it's the definitive edition. Well, not really. Tomb Raider was also a game that didn't really feature a huge amount of meaningful DLC. It was mostly multiplayer map packs. There was the Tomb of the Lost Adventurer, and that was really about it. Everything else was a bunch of multiplayer weapons that are all like 99 cents each, and skills and single-player upgrades and cheats and nonsense like that. It's like 25 of those. So I assume those will be included, but yeah, Definitive Edition is a little bit of a weird choice for that. And then, of course, finally, we had the announcement of No Man's Sky, which is very intriguing. I am a little concerned that this will be a disappointment. The reason I'm concerned about it is because that's incredibly ambitious. Really ambitious. They're talking about a procedurally generated universe whereby you actually can fly to the stars that you see in the sky. It doesn't have a skybox. What you see in the sky is actually real. There's a sort of meta multiplayer aspect to it. There's no real multiplayer. And, I mean, it sounds incredible, which is why I'm terrified that it won't be. I mean, best of luck to them with it. It looks great. But obviously with procedurally generated sandbox games, the actual quality of the content can suffer. I'd love to know how they're going to handle the technical challenges of this, and I'm looking forward to giving it a try. There's also, of course, a trailer for The Division, which I'd recommend you watch because it actually shows off the Snowdrop engine, which is looking pretty damn good. Looking forward to getting that on my PC, since they have actually now announced it. That'd be damn ridiculous if they didn't. It would almost be like Bungie not announcing Destiny for the PC. You know, that kind of level of silly. And finally, on last week's show, we discussed a leaked set of terms from the LCS contract for 2014. League of Legends Pro players were being told that they would not be able to stream from a list of titles given to them by Riot. This included streaming at any time as opposed to just streaming alongside League of Legends, and it was a bit of a curious list at that. However, in a statement given to Reddit by Riot makers, the company has decided to reverse the policy, stating that you will be free to stream all games, regardless of whether or not you happen to be a part of the LCS tournament series. However, you will not be able to take sponsorship from other competing titles, which actually seems entirely reasonable. They went on to state that the reason this was in the contract in the first place was that some competing developers had attempted to buy access to the League of Legends community by paying pro players and streamers to stream their particular title. Now, we do know that this has actually happened at least on one occasion in the case of Hi-Rez's Smite, where I believe it was Team Solo Mid had received money to play Smite on their stream, which seemed like a pretty savvy promotional way of doing things, but Riot has taken steps now to shut that down. Now, I should say that it is entirely reasonable that Riot should take steps in order to shut that down. That is a good compromise. I'm very glad that they listened to the outcry surrounding this. This is very good indeed. Shows that they're willing to listen. However, there are a couple of things that I would like to point out. Firstly, this shouldn't have been in the contract to begin with. You know, it's very easy to do something bad and then say, oh, lol, my fault, we'll change that. That doesn't mean that they didn't intend to do it to begin with. In this case, it seems like the only reason they changed it is because they got rumbled. They were found out. They were spotted with their hand in the cookie jar. So that was when they were forced to compromise. I have no doubt that if this term was never leaked in the first place, then there would have been no changes, and they would have perhaps gotten away with that. Regardless, still, they changed it, so they listened, and that's good. They could have just plowed on regardless. Secondly, though, I would also like to say, and this is something that I've noticed in quite a lot of Riot statements, is when they do something wrong, they will kind of use a half-truth in order to explain their actions. They're not the only ones to do this by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, I'd say this is common industry practice. Saying, yeah, well, we were wrong, but also this is a valid way of deflecting blame. In this case, Riot claimed there'd been instances of other game studios trying to buy access to League fans. Okay, we know that that did happen at least once. We don't know if it's widespread, and we certainly don't know if the games that were on that list attempted to do it. In fact, I can almost guarantee that a lot of them didn't. Games like, say, Fat Princess, there's no way in a million years that that game and that company actually attempted to buy access to LCS fans. That seems absurd. It's not even on the same platform, and I've never seen a League of Legends streamer playing that game. In fact, that game is pretty much defunct at this stage. And there are a number of other games, such as Warhammer Wrath of Heroes, that have been defunct for almost a year now. Blizzard, I know for a fact, has never paid anybody for that. Good luck getting any money out of Blizzard, man. Trust me, I've been trying for a while. You cannot do it. They won't even give in-game gold to their employees in Hearthstone. Yeah? They're savvy by giving keys to people that have audiences, but then again, that's pretty standard business practice when it comes to modern game new media promotion. That's exactly what you want to be doing there. And if League was a new game, I have no doubt they would be attempting to do exactly the same thing. So while I do agree that they should be able to defend themselves from this, I do not believe that that was the entire reason, and the list does not reflect that that was the entire reason. So they're in the right, and they changed things around, but this is still kind of a lie by omission. They're not really telling the whole story. That said, I think it brings up a very interesting discussion, and that's the idea of endorsement-based deals or just paying for time, paying for access to an audience. This is getting pretty commonplace, both on Twitch and on YouTube. Twitch has a program called the Influencer Program, which basically looks to give sponsored stream time to companies and uses popular channels to do it. What they do is they pay for some time on the channel and say, hey, yeah, we'd like you to play this game for a couple of hours, we'll pay you this much to do it. They generally don't have any other requirements, which is why it's actually a pretty good system, but this kind of thing does happen. We're not necessarily talking about being paid to say this game is great, we're just talking about being paid to gain access to an audience. And that is certainly fair, but I feel it has to be disclosed. It really does. This is a problem on YouTube as well, and I think it's something that even I failed to do in the past, and I've been making a great effort lately to make sure that I tell you guys exactly when it is that I get a paid gig, like, say, the Chivalry thing that's coming up. That's a paid gig. The Guns of Icarus thing, a paid gig. The Pacific Rim deal, a paid gig. And as far as I'm concerned, as long as you are 100% honest about that, then your audience has nothing to worry about. You're perhaps doing something slightly out of the ordinary, you are being given money for your time and only your time. And then it really comes down to whether or not the audience actually trusts your opinion if you decide to give it. And if I want to give any advice to anyone that streams, or to anyone that has a YouTube channel that takes part in these deals, do not give your opinions at all. It is very difficult to justify that. You will be looked upon as being biased. And honestly, rightfully so. The audience are not in the wrong there. I do, however, have some concerns that this kind of thing is going on and that there are people willing to give an endorsement or give an opinion. I think if you're just playing a game and you're having fun, then it's obvious, You can't really overlook problems that are being shown on the screen. That's the wonderful thing about direct gameplay feed. It is the most honest. Why do you think some companies don't want it out there? It is the most honest thing you can do to show whether or not a game is actually any good. So if you say, all right, I'm going to play a game for 2 hours, you play it, and either you have fun with it or you don't, and that's obvious to the audience, then I don't see a problem with it. It's once you start giving opinions that the problem can arise, and I do wonder how many paid opinions are actually on YouTube for video games. I have no doubt that there are some, I have no doubt it's happened, and I also have no doubt that it has been happening on Twitch as well. All I'm saying to everyone is be bloody transparent. Don't poison the well for everybody. It's a good way to make some money. It's a good way for your audience to have an exciting time. And it's also a good way for companies to get their name out there when it comes to particular products. And this is particularly relevant, I think, when you're not dealing with a AAA. It can be a very effective and honest way of marketing a title that's actually sustainable and well within the means of a company. Something that, as we've seen in the past, can get pretty ridiculous when it comes to marketing. The budgets can get outlandishly large, and they can result in games having to sell more copies and indeed changes to business practice to afford this kind of nonsense. This is a way better way of doing it, but just don't ruin it for everybody. Be honest, let your audience know, and trust that they will trust you. If they as a whole don't trust you, then you might want to have another look at how you deal with them and how you've treated them in the past. Alright folks, that is me done for the day. Thank you very much for watching the content patch, but before I go, I'd like to give you the OC remix track just as a send-off. That sounds like a good idea, doesn't it? We haven't done that in a little while, so let's play a particularly good one. Funny that one of my favorite remixes actually comes from one of the worst games ever made, or indeed not even released. The rather legendary Cheetah Men from the Action 52 cart, and if you need to know anything about that, then you should go and have a look at the Angry Video Game Nerds presentation on that one. There was a piece of music from the unreleased Cheetah Men 2 that ended up becoming a little bit of an internet fad for a while, and 2 remixes of this game were actually released. My favorite is by PrototypeRaptor. It's a rather lengthy one, and it goes by the name of Cheetah Men 2 C.H.E.E.T.A.H. It's a little weird, I gotta say, but it's quite the creative remix of what was otherwise an absolute disaster of a title. But there you go. Here it is, folks. PrototypeRaptor's Cheetah Men 2. I'll see you next time.